Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the Santita Jackson Show. I say welcome back because, I've been out of town. And yesterday, I think you heard a conversation with Reverend Dr. Michael Eric Dyson as he was reacting to and really helping us to frame President Obama's comments about Black men, what that means. We've talked to State Senator Nina Turner about the same thing, and we did a roundtable. And y'all stayed on for 3 hours because everybody was so wound up about what they heard because we've been holding a lot of things back. And so we want to let things go. The only way you heal is to really be honest. My brother Jonathan, Dr. Julian Malveaux, Attorney Darrell Jones, chair of the Transformative Justice Coalition, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. Of course, she is the president emeritus of Bennett College for Women, brilliant economist, and the co-chair of the Push for Excellence education program. My brother Jonathan, my parents kept taking him to the hospital. He was 11 months old, Dr. Malveaux, and it was around Christmas of 1966. And he was a couple of weeks from his first birthday, and the doctor kept misdiagnosing him with a cold. And Jonathan kept getting worse and worse and worse. And my parents were young parents. They had 3 children, 2, almost 1, because Jesse and Johnny are 10 months apart. And they had no money. He's a student at the University of Chicago. My mother's working in the library. And it was when my great-grandmother, who could neither read nor write, when she walked into the apartment, because she was going to be with us for Christmas, she said, she said, I smell pneumonia. My mother said, no, Johnny has a cold. And she dropped her bags at the door and went to him and felt him. And she said, he's swimming in his back. Nothing but fluid. My point is, it was a misdiagnosis that almost killed him. And then because my parents had no money and they were going to be put out the hospital, that almost killed him too. Dr. King saved his life because he came in and intervened. You got to get the right information, everybody. And you cannot be afraid of the information that you find, Dr. Malveaux. As a scientist, because that's what you are in economics, the data is what it is. It yields what it yields. Just make sure that your inputs are correct. And, and don't judge the inputs. Just put them into the equation. Trust me, the equal sign is the truth. It equalizes. That's why, I had a calculus teacher, Dr. Sachere, gonna make you famous. He used to grade us so hard. If he gave you a written definition, if you were off by a comma or a semicolon, you got docked. He said removing the punctuation changes the definition, and he was right. But you had to go through the whole. He wanted to see. I had to go to the computer lab, Dr. Malveaux, and get Fortran paper back in the day, because you had to write out every line of the solution to his homework assignments, and he would grade you on each step. So I think Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds and Attorney Darrell Jones and Dr. Julian Malveaux, we're going through the steps now because we've been so busy trying to break the tape, get to the finish line, that we're missing a lot of vital stuff. And so let's talk about the issues. We're going to be talking about the vote with Greg Palast in the next hour. Of course, October 21st on Monday. We'll go at 6 p.m. at 930 East 50th Street at the Rainbow Push headquarters. We want you to come on out and look at Vigilantes Inc. We are going to have, hey, LaShawn, how you doing, sweetie? And Andre Parker. We are going to have a tremendous discussion about our voting rights. And you're going to see voter suppression in real time. We're going to be able to put some faces to the people, Darrell Jones, who are taking your right from you. I mean, and you're with them in the Walmart. You're with them in the grocery store. They are normal looking people, but boy, they are on a mission, and they are sponsored to do that. So I'm on the Santita Jackson and Friends Facebook page. Please become my friend there, and the Santita Jackson Show YouTube channel. Like and subscribe. Please, everybody, pass this information along. And I'm at Santita J on X, and at Santita J Show. So let's talk about the issues in this campaign. My brother, Congressman Jonathan Jackson, and I were in Michigan on Monday night, Tuesday. We got in early Wednesday morning. And when we look at the issues, the Pew studies and the Gallup studies, all of these, the Gallup polls, the Pew studies, they all tell us, and whether they skew Rasmussen, whether they skew left or right, they all tell you that the economy is the issue that is driving the election. Inflation, cost of living, prosperity wages, poverty, all of that's driving the election, but so is migration, but that's also connected to the economy, right? But your voting rights, police reform, there are a lot of things are really really keeping us, pushing us to the polls, or maybe keeping us away because maybe we're not hearing from the candidates what we need to hear from them. And I will tell you this, everybody: when you don't vote, you vote. You voted. Please get out there and vote. And I'm not going to talk down to you, condescend to you, because a lot of people have broken hearts and they've had broken dreams. They've been raised up and they have been disappointed, Dr. Malvo. And we have to get out of these bubbles in which we do politics for a living. We serve people for a living. But many of the people we serve, when I'm at Rainbow Push, they're going home to no lights, no gas, not enough food, no food. People are really struggling. People are living in cars if they are lucky.
Mm-hmm.
This is where America is right now. And we have to be honest about that. So when you talk about the disappointments that people have, and just the outright anger that you are seeing from black, white, brown, yellow, and red people, we need to be honest about that, everybody. When you have cancer, you do not need cold medicine. I promise you, you need chemo or radiation or something. Come on, Dr. Malvo. So the economy, inflation, I mean, because the White House, bless their hearts, they keep telling us, well, things are getting better. And I'm sure, on paper they are. But when you start talking to people, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, Attorney Darrell Jones, they are saying, I absolutely cannot afford my groceries. I've got to put things back. The cashiers cannot afford to shop at the grocery stores. So what is it? I mean, do you see the economy, or what do you see as the issue that's really driving this election, or the issues, Dr. Julianne Malvo?
Well, the economy is the driver, and everyone, Democrat, Republican, is concerned about the economy. Inflation numbers are better. They are. However, there's a lag. You get the number that's put out there that month. You don't feel it for another couple of months. I happen to be sitting at the LA train station waiting for a ride, waiting for a friend to pick me up. And this older sister sat next to me and just ran her mouth incessantly. But at some point, she started talking about the inflation. And she told me she was going to vote for Trump because she didn't think that Kamala could handle the economy. She was older than me. That's old. She was she was interesting, and she said she heard that Kamala was a communist. And I said, where did you hear that from? She said Fox. I said, well, see where you get your news from. You need to check something else out. But the bottom line was she started talking about prices, and what we know, if you just use the price of eggs as an example. 3 years ago, maybe 4 years ago, they're under $2 a dozen. By mid-April of last year, they were up to $4.25 a dozen. Now they're back down to maybe $1.25 a dozen. Those numbers are rough, but anyway, you see the peak, you see it go down, but for many people, it hasn't gone down enough. When you say, you remember when it was one something, almost two, and now it's three. That's inflation of basically 50%, and that's just too high. And so while the Fed, others are dealing with this, basically it's not happening quickly enough for people, and that's the crux of it. Biden didn't cause inflation. Neither Kamala nor Trump can fix inflation. These are market forces that can be tweaked, but you can't, quote, fix inflation. Both have problems to fix inflation. Not
But
going
Dr. Malveaux, let me ask you this, because Vice President Harris has talked about price gouging. And in fact,
to.
many states have laws against price gouging because the corporations are gouging us.
They
And
are.
no one is taking them on. They are raising prices and they're not answerable to anyone because we
Well,
keep paying, right? I mean, and
exactly.
so
So that's the other issue is price gouging, because all of this inflation is not natural forces. Like it costs more. The supply chain is broken for one thing. The other thing that's going on is that corporations are taking predatory profits when they can. They can, demand for food is inelastic. No matter what happens, you need food. You might not need prime rib, maybe have to go to hamburger, but you will buy food. And because people will buy food, some of these people are gouging, and they're gouging horribly. It's not clear how you regulate that. And when you try to regulate that, that's when the accusations of communism, socialism, when you try to regulate prices. But oversight on how prices are being raised is something that is important. And Kamala has talked about that more than the other man has. And it's important to look at who is supporting what you need. But the spin is that Democrats caused inflation. They didn't. COVID caused inflation. Price gouging uh, basically amplified it. From an economic perspective, we also have lots of good news, Santita. I mean, the unemployment rate is low. Um, the biggest problem for many people is not somebody who put something in the chat or something. It's not food, it's rent. And we're not measuring that properly. What we know is that rents are high, that housing costs are high, that lots of people who can't afford a down payment can't find something in their budget. Um, and we know that there's a housing stock shortage.
mhm.
We did no replacement housing in the last 2 years, building, fewer than 100,000 units. Now, Kamala has said she will, and I should say Vice President Harris, I know her, so I could say Kamala if I won't. She has said she wants to um, increase the housing stock, and she has a plan to do that. That will, of course, lower rents and housing costs. Housing costs for many, I said, we're not measuring it properly. I know so many people. I just hung out with a young family, and the woman and her husband have the woman's sister and her husband. So about 6 kids. I had to get out of there. I hung out for a minute. I'm like, there's too many kids for me. But basically, they're sharing housing in a place that was built for one family because they both can't afford independent housing. So this isn't being measured. When people start talking about homelessness and other things, they're not talking enough about shared housing and who's being forced to share housing. You don't want your sibling out on the street with her kids, so you say, "Come on in and stay with us." And we've done that as a Black community over the years, time and time again. It's not unusual. But what is unusual is that people who have both of these couples have full-time jobs. Both couples have full-time jobs. When the woman's sister got an eviction notice because the owner of the place they were renting is turning it into Airbnb, when she got her eviction notice, she couldn't find anywhere to go. And so there are a lot of forces in the housing market, all which put upward pressure on rental costs. And again, I think that we're not talking about enough. Kamala uniquely has drilled down on this, and I think we need to give her credit for that as well. But I think that we're looking at a deadlocked election because of style and process. Uh, Mr. Trump wouldn't. As I saw a Republican yesterday on CNN, and he said where his lips moving, and the person said, "Yeah," he said, "Yeah, that means he was lying."
You know
And
what? But so much of this, I tell you what, I feel like people are trying to insult my intelligence. The thing is, so much of this is based on personality. If he had a smile, if he had a pleasing personality, people would pay less attention to his policies because that's just how we're rolling. Most of us do not know what Project 25 is. Most of us don't even know, as my brother who's in Congress said, Project 25 is already being rolled out.
Yeah.
I mean that is so. It's just like, stop, everybody. Let's deal with policy, and that's why I said, I don't do the name calling and all that. I'm so sick of it. If you either he's going to be the former president, or Barack is not going to be. Enough. I mean, the question is, how are people going to eat? And people conflate Vice President Harris's politics with her father's. Her father has experimented with Marxism. A lot of people. I mean, what's wrong with that? As an American, we're supposed to be able to explore whatever thoughts whatever thoughts that we embrace. It's your business. And we have a mixed system anyway. Wall Street socializes their losses and they capitalize their wins.
There you go.
We pay for everything, every mess up that they do. I mean, and I am so tired of it. In the meantime, my cashier at my grocery store, because I ask her now purposely, how are you doing? Girl, I'm struggling. That is what I hear. And I go to a lot of different grocery stores, but I know they all have that in common. And I'm trying to find out just how we're going to get out of this, because what did Reverend Jackson say, Dr. Malveaux, I'm sure you have heard him say it many times. Full employment is wonderful, but we had that in slavery. We need fair employment.
Yep. No, the labor market, wages are not keeping up with productivity. People are producing more than they're being paid for. And again, if we want to look at policies, we have a candidate who wants to go to the free market for wages, and the free market wages would be whatever. In a union environment, which Vice President Harris supports, we would basically have fairer wages. We know that Black people who are in unions earn, in doing the same job, Black men earn almost a third more as a unionized worker than they do as a non-unionized worker.
Mm-hmm.
Black women about 25% more as unionized and non-unionized. But when Mr. Trump was the president, he refused to fill vacant slots on the National Labor Relations Board. Then when he filled them with arch conservatives who basically were anti-union.
Absolutely.
So we clearly, everybody is struggling. Everybody, not everybody, but people at the bottom half, and maybe even the bottom 60% are struggling.
People who are making $100,000 a year are struggling.
Yeah.
I mean, but let me, and of course, you are on WPFW every Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. WPFW, everybody. Please check Dr. Julianne Malveaux out. She's absolutely brilliant. And Attorney Daryl Jones on WOL in DC every Tuesday at 12 noon Eastern Standard Time. You have been on the road, you and Attorney Barbara Arnwine and the Transformative Justice Coalition team. What are you hearing from people?
Well, Santita, that's a great question, and it's a mixture of what we're hearing. Some of what we hear is what Dr. Malveaux has been saying with regards to the economy. And one of the things that I think people have to remember when we talk about the economy, we're really talking about a lot of stuff that makes up the economy. I mean, if you're talking about how much do I have to pay for my gas to get to work, how much do I make at work, what are my wages? Those are some of the real basic issues that we're hearing, particularly with the younger voters, the Gen Zs. What we're hearing is about housing. I can't afford rent. I've got to team up with other people to be able to afford rent, to be able to make my basics. So a lot of that on the economic side is what we hear, and that concern that's being raised. What does my future look like economically? What does my job prospect look like in the future coming out of college? So those are a lot of the real meat and potato issues, if you will, that we hear on the ground. And so one of the questions that I think that is raised, and Dr. Malveaux is always 100% right on point, is that the people, the voters, are asking, who has the best policy for me? Who is going to help me and my family survive as we're going through this? And one of the things that Vice President Harris has that I think is a somewhat disadvantage, it is that there is a belief, there's a generalized belief, wrong as it may be, that Republicans are better for the economy than Democrats, right? And it's a general, it's believed that they're money makers, they're all about money, they're obviously going to be able to do more for me and do better for the country, rather than being able to really sit down and look at the facts as Dr. Malveaux does, with regards to what are the numbers, what do they really say, rather than this generalized belief. So that's one of the things that I think Vice President Harris has done a tremendous job at stabilizing, if we believe the polls, right? Because the polls say that they're almost equal with regards to their ability to handle the economy. So Vice President Harris, I think, has done an excellent job in sort of neutralizing what has traditionally been a very Republican issue. The other thing that we hear when we're in the streets, with the young folks, we hear a lot of talk with regards to the international policies, with regards to Gaza, with regards to all the handling of those issues and the issues and concerns that they have with regards to President Biden. But interestingly, a large part of what we're hearing is not that they're placing blame at the foot of Vice President Harris, but they're placing blame at the administration of President Biden. And they're able to separate and understand that Vice President Harris doesn't control the policy, that ultimately it's the president that controls the policy. So a lot of that is what we're hearing on the ground. What becomes really interesting, I think, Santita, is that we see both candidates for the two major parties that are talking housing heavily, but increasing the stock of housing, the availability of housing, and trying to lower the cost of rent. And only Vice President Harris is talking about, as far as I can tell, going after price gouging to try to address groceries and being able to put food on people's tables at a moderate price. So that's a large part, I think, of what's being heard that's on the minds of many of the voters. When someone raises the issue of saying that, I'm not going to vote, I don't do politics, blah, 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 blah. Well, you may not do politics, but guess what? Politics will do you, because it's going to be involved in whatever you're trying to do. So we encourage people to get involved in the game, be certain that you are a voter and that your voice does matter. Because if you don't vote, you succumb to the system and let the system do whatever it wants to do to you. So it's just so important, Santita, that as we go around, we hear people talking about whether or not they're going to be involved, whether or not their vote's going to really matter. A lot of folks are really excited about it, and some people are still somewhat on the sideline. But I think they're becoming, this is what is the statement, Representative Reynolds? This is third and long or fourth and one, and we're on the goal for the win.
Oh, wait. Dr. Julian Malveaux and I know football.
Get up off of your sexism, brother.
Well,
my dad made me learn all of these sports, and my mother looked at him and said, "What are you going to do? Make her put on cleats?" He said, "I want her to know. I don't want." He said half the world is male, and men speak in sports metaphor, and I don't want her to be excluded from the conversation. Third and long, Racine, Wisconsin. You have one more strike.
Well, see, I said I put Representative Reynolds in it because I felt so sorry for the Dallas Cowboys and how they've been suffering. So,
you're good. You're good. I'm gonna have to go to my Shakespeare. What we supposed to do with lawyers? we gotta deal with you lawyers. Don't even, honey, turn on your mic. Texas State Representative Ron Wells. I'm gonna mute him for the rest of the show.
Well, you know what, Santita, mute him on this too, because I am with the Houston Texans, not the Dallas Cowboys, and we are doing just fine. Okay, with a black head coach and a black quarterback. Yeah,
Thank you very much.
Yes.
There you go, bro. There you go.
And we welcome to the panel Dr. LaShawn Latrice, who is taking notes on all of us. Remember, she's a community psychologist. Watch it. Especially you, Dr. Malveaux. I'm going to put you on mute just as a favor.
Me?
Yeah.
Right.
You know, Julianne Malveaux has been part of our family for almost since the beginning. We just love her, and that's all we can do. We just love her. But Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, I mean, you are in a state where there's just a lot going on. You know, you try to vote, you're sent to prison, and more than 1 million people were purged from the rolls. Um, you have it's a place where, as white people go back to the South, more of us are going to Texas than any other state, and you have plenty of opportunities with the oil and gas industry, and that's great. At the same time, we still struggle.
That's right.
And it's not, then mind you, everybody, this conversation is not just for Black people only. Lonnie Guinier, the great legal scholar, I heard her speak at our Push conference, Dr. Malveaux, more than 30 years ago. And she said, Black people are the canaries in the mine. You send the canary down into the mine, and if the canary comes up and the canary's all right, then it's safe to send the miners down. But if the canary comes back up struggling or unalived, well, you know that there's a problem. So when you look at the Black, and I would dare say the indigenous communities, because the indigenous people index worse than Black people, then you know that the least of these, and Appalachia, these white people, poor white people, cannot come out of poverty, Dr. Malveaux. They just stay there forever. I mean, if you're at the bottom, it's hard to get out from under. So what are you hearing? I mean, as you are taking your soul poll and as you run for re-election yourself.
I think Dr. Malvo and Attorney Daryl Jones were spot on, particularly about the economy. Many of the folks that I talk to, they're talking about what's in it for me, right? There is a contrast. I mean, when you talk about white people, it's more, particularly white women, it's more reproductive rights. It's more about abortion. I don't hear much from my constituents or Black folks about abortion. It may come up as a general conversation, but that's not the primary. So when all the discussion is about abortion, they kind of tune it out because that's not their top issue. They're more concerned about the economy. And interestingly enough, I think that Daryl hit it spot on. Republicans are deemed better on the economy. And I think that's false. That's a false narrative, but it's embedded in our minds. And so when they talk about the economy, they think that Trump is better, even though Dr. Malvo, most economists, they polled and said his proposal, his economic proposal on tariffs would be worse, much worse in terms of recession and rising inflation. So, but just because he proposed it, and there's this notion that he's better on the economy, they're thinking he will be better if he was elected than Kamala would on her economic agenda. I was very pleased yesterday that Vice President Kamala Harris rolled out her Black men economic agenda and the 1 million proposal for entrepreneurs and forgivable loans. I think up to around $20,000 and other things. So I think that the discussion that we had yesterday, the concerns of Black men, it forced her to come up with proposals specifically aimed at Black men. And so I was happy that she was able to pivot and come up with a agenda that addressed some of those concerns. Not all of them, but some of them. Legalizing, marijuana. It was some other proposals that she made. So that shows that she at least is listening and willing to do something in the affirmative. But I do believe that the other issue she's not touching, the issue that Daryl touched on. There's still the issue of Gaza. That is something that is an issue that I don't think she's going to address before the election. I think that she's going to try to, downplay it and not even touch it for fear that there could be some landmines and alienating the Jewish supporters.
Well, wait a minute. Let me ask you this, because as an elected official, this is
Mhm.
your concern, and it's been your concern, Daryl Jones, because when you're running for office, you're not as free. You can have your personal feelings, but maybe that's not the right way to put it. You have many other considerations. Do you think
Right,
that's better?
right.
Not just your thoughts or the thoughts of the people who support you, but you are representing everybody.
That's right.
I think, you know, President Obama meant well, but what he needed to say was, I'm president of all America, but the least of these I've got to care for.
That's right.
And the fact is, historically, Black people have the promises have not been kept.
That's correct.
So, and there is repair that is needed. Now, how we do it, I don't know. Another study, I know people don't want to hear that, but we've got to start.
Totally.
We've got to start, and I think and he's never quite gotten that. But then, bless his heart, that's not his background,
That's right.
and that does not make him an awful person. It's just you're a product of where you come from, Dr. Melville. It is what it is.
Right.
But when you run as a Black person, and and this is, and our own history is something that you're running on. You better figure that out. Keith Ellison had that talk with Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, because she didn't quite understand the Black experience of enslavement, and how could she? This is not where she's from. He said, "Oh, but PDQ, you need to let me help you to understand it, because when you talk to Black people in America, that is our concern. That is because we're from that, and so." Like you said, I mean, because it seems, because we have different conversations, right? I mean, you hear white women who are saying, reproductive rights, and they are important. I mean, you had that young Black woman who died in the parking lot, Dr. Malvo of the hospital, Amber, was it? I mean, my goodness. I mean, she's afraid to get treated, and the doctors are afraid to treat her. That's horrible. It's horrible. That having been said, there's some hand-to-mouth needs that we have got, like every day.
Housing is such a big issue. Affordable housing, workforce housing. There should be a federal minimum wage increase. That's a big. That's
11 years overdue.
Way overdue, right? And so what we've seen from the economy is that the rich have gotten richer and the poor have gotten poorer. People in the
wait a minute, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. There are these people who we watch them going from their yachts to their helicopters to their planes. Several of them are on track to become trillion.
Yes.
And they don't want to pay their fair share of taxes.
Nope.
I don't mind you being
a trillion.
Pay
their workers, Dr. Melville.
Right.
That part too. They don't pay their taxes. They don't pay their workers. And essentially, they are free coasting on everybody else. And our laws have been written to favor them. And understand that if the previous president comes in, he already gave a huge tax cut to the wealthy. He'll do it again. It's part of the platform. They want to get rid of regulation. What does regulation do? It protects workers. They want to get rid of OSHA, Occupations Safety and Health Administration. They want to get rid, of course, they want to get rid of the Department of Education. But if you go into the fine print of Project 2025, they want to get rid of many of the regulatory agencies that are protective.
Thank you, Daryl Jones. I mean, before we get to you, Dr. Latrice, but see, that's my issue also with the Democrats. And and I'm an independent Democrat, and I reserve the right to critique my party that we help to make so that everybody could get in. How about that? Now, what bothers me is that someone like Dr. Julianne Malveaux, with this brilliant economist who frames these issues so succinctly, and she puts it down where the goats can get it, because she's a teacher. She should be on the road.
Mhm.
Now,
Offered.
must you?
I offered, but I'm too radical, I was told.
Well, no, we have to put her in a jacket where she's hugging herself. We would do that. And I would stand there on that stage and I put a little bit around her mouth and say, now you just say this. But no, but all jokes aside, kind of jokes. The fact is she's brilliant and she frames it. And by the time because she knows how to talk to us.
Mhm.
All these folks are talking over our heads. Way up above my head, I hear music in there, but that's another proposition. Thank you, Black Church. I hear music in there. No. Right now, I need to know the plan that you presented to Black America. I know it's also a plan that you presented to men. Black men have particular problems, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds. We're being pushed off the voter rolls because we have black sounding names.
Mm-hmm.
We
That's
got
real.
so that means when you apply to school, apply for a job, if you are Tyrone Davis, kudos to the singer, they're going to make certain presumptions.
Mhm.
If you're Chip Brown, and I have a very beloved friend who is Chip Brown, they would go, Ronald Harmon Brown, they would not assume. We have particular problems, particular challenges that have to be addressed, and we can't apologize for needing them to be addressed. Attorney Darrell Jones.
Mhm.
I mean, and I think that's where you're seeing some of the disconnect. And when I look at social media over the past few days, where they are scorching the former president, doesn't mean that we don't love him because we do, but there is anger and there is disappointment, and there are also young people who all they have known was a black president, so they don't have the same hopes and aspirations tied to him that we might have had. They're like, no, you just didn't come through for me. Period. We have to deal with, because my nieces and nephews live another reality than I did. I mean, I stopped watching the Miss America contest when I was like, Dr. Melville, when I was like 6 or 7, when it became clear to me as a child that I wasn't getting in the top 10. I asked my babysitter, Yvonne, one day, because I just walked away I was like 8. I said, what is it? She said, oh, honey, that contest isn't for us. So we had Miss Black America. You remember that?
Oh, absolutely. Girl, let me tell you, when I was 8, I lynched my Barbie doll.
Oh,
Ooh.
well, now see,
Yeah.
that's why, that's why you're not on the road right now. See, look, Dr. Latrice, now I'm pivoting to the doctor, to the psychologist. I don't even want to get a visual on that. Dr. Latrice.
Well, I've been listening, and I agree with what you're saying. There are a lot of people out here that have mixed reviews about everything. Depending on what side of the tracks you're from or what age group you're from, people have a different way of contextualizing what's being said.
Well, no,
And
well,
so I think,
hold it, break that down. You said depending upon where we are, because we have different classes within our cast. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds and Attorney Darrell Jones and Dr. Julianne Malveaux. But let's be clear. I think you're going to the heart of something. Please, Dr. LaShawn Latrice, what are you saying?
based on who you're talking to, who's actually commenting on what's taking place. I have a group of people that we sit around, we talk about, life issues. Everyone's from different walks of life. Some may be attorneys, some may be teachers. But I noticed that the men seem to feel like they don't have a ground to comment publicly about how they really feel about certain things. And I was talking to one particularly, and he zeroed in on a conversation he was having about the VP, the candidate, and he was saying he just made comments on what his observations were. He said, "Yes, I may vote for her, but do I think she's the best choice? I'm not sure about that, but I know Trump is not." And he said he was attacked on every hand, and he said he was called misogynistic. So he said he just reserves his conversation now in certain parameters. He's
But
not going to comment at all.
And you all, that's the dangerous part. So when they're polling, you really don't know where people stand. Because people, if they don't toe a certain line, Dr. Malvo, Representative Reynolds, and Attorney Jones, they just won't tell you. They'll just go to the voting booth.
Yep.
I mean, there's the undercurrent of that, Dr. Latrice. Is that what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Wow.
And the bad part is that no matter what a person does for a living, how much money they earn, they too are part of the democracy, and they should be able to talk about certain issues, but they're being shushed depending on what circles they're in. And I guess when he was having his conversation, he was with a lot of Divine Nine people. He's an attorney. But he felt like I've never have this conversation publicly again. He said, I can do this with you because you're family. But he said, the others, I will not do that. He said, because I don't want to be looked at a certain way because I have my views. I said, but you're entitled to your views.
But what's happening is that many people have become quite cult-like around candidates. Not
Everybody.
But people are cult-like. So you can't say, theoretically, I mean, I said something, I had a similar experience, but people know that I will say whatever is on my mind, so don't play with me. But but I said, obviously I'm all in and enthusiastic about Vice President Harris. I said, but just like we have the Barack experience, we have to, when she gets in, we still will have to push her. It just doesn't go without saying that she's going to do everything we want to be done, because actually she's been a moderate, left-leaning moderate. She's never been completely left-leaning, and maybe she shouldn't be as a vice president.
Or maybe she can't be. She should be whoever
she
these people
chopped me up because I said all I said was let's not forget the lessons of Obama.
No, all you didn't do was fall on your knees and go, hallelujah.
I don't do that for anybody.
But I'm saying that's what we're doing, everybody. And that is so dangerous. So when you get a Dr. LaShawn Latrice, and I know she can't get on many platforms, like there's some platforms that you won't get on because if you don't adhere to a certain orthodoxy, even though that we will never resolve these problems, Daryl Jones.
Mm-hmm. I agree with you. We may not resolve all the problems, but sometimes I think we need to just hit the pause button for a second and take a look at where we are and how we got here. Let's remember that when President Biden was elected, right, he wasn't all of what anybody wanted. But what we know is that he was someone that, he represented more of what we needed than what we had at that time, which was former President Trump. So let's not put Vice President Harris in a different category, a different standard. Say that she has to now go over a higher barrier to be able to beat the same candidate. I just think that we have to be certain that we don't.
But she does. She's Black. She's a woman. I'm about to sound like I'm in Color Purple. So because she does have a higher standard. When Reverend ran for president, he was judged by a higher standard. He had to beat everybody in those debates. He had to outspeak everybody. He had to do it. So by the time we got to July 1984, July 17, and he spoke at the convention, America, who had been hearing about him for more than 25 years, they were shocked. They said, whoa, wait. This is the best speech I've heard, period. I know nothing like this is Dr. Martin Luther King. I mean, people certainly have heard other great speeches, okay? But I'm saying in that context, so the thing is, Jackie Robinson, he had to be the best internally, externally. Like Reverend had to be the best. You have to be. And so, so the question is, how do you talk to these people? But stay right there, Attorney Jones, because I wanted Dr. Latrice to finish, because she's bringing us something that we're not hearing. Dr. Latrice, is there anything that can be said to people? I mean, what are you hearing from them?
I think people are still waiting for her to address issues that hit home for them, and I don't think people have heard that yet to to the point that I'm listening to even the panel talking now, there are still some major issues that just have not been addressed, and I still think it's detracting away from her authenticity because people feel like she's being puppeted. Somebody's telling her what to say or what not to say, and when they feel like that, that makes them draw back and retreat, and it's almost as if they think not voting is the better option.
Dr. Latrice, what issues are you talking about, please? Because she's addressed almost everything. I'd like to know what issues you feel have been unaddressed.
Everything from police accountability to the criminal justice reform, like what's missing with the system, what's wrong with the disparities that exist, the mass incarceration, the poverty issues, the war. There are certain things that have not specifically been addressed as it relates to people who are in certain circles that are on the ground working, always trying to make the community better. They do not feel like their issues are even being addressed. And then when we talk about the Black men, those who have been incarcerated, many of them have just been left out of the game. And they don't even really realize that they can vote in most places. They think that that conversation is not for them.
So Trump would do better for these men than
I'm not comparing her to Trump. I'm not saying Trump is the alternative. I'm saying, and we're speaking with her because she came out so boisterous on the Divine Nine. Many people don't even relate to the Divine Nine. So we know who they are, but the average person, they don't know who the Divine Nine are. And they felt like that was kind of the wrong approach because it was almost as if that conversation was meant for a certain group of people. When we talk about what was launched at the DNC and how things progressed from there, but we still haven't come back to the real heart of the issues with homelessness and poverty and things that are affecting the economy as we've been discussing this morning.
But it sort of seems to me that she has addressed some of those issues, right? I mean, mass incarceration and the right to vote. She has been, what is the statement that you use, Santita? 10 toes down on saying that she supports the Freedom to Vote Act, which levels who people who can vote, particularly if they've been incarcerated. Once your feet are in the street, you can vote. She's been one of the staunch
But you know
supporters.
what? I haven't heard her use that expression, feet in the street.
No,
And because there's something while she's addressing these issues one by one, it's not landing.
Mhm.
So we can. I mean, we're there. I mean, we're saying but they are saying that it's not landing. So my question is now 3 weeks out, how can we help the message land? And like I said, you still have her history out in California being state's attorney and attorney general is still out here. That's a big issue with Black men and with the women who love them and the men too and their children. I mean, we have to get beyond our own silos.
right.
in California, she was just doing her job as attorney general and as district attorney in San Francisco. She was doing her job as a district attorney in San Francisco. She used the leniency that she had to soften penalties. The district attorney is an attorney. When people commit crimes, they have to be accountable for them.
But
I mean,
but,
I don't care
but
how
she's
liberal
not
you
saying
are, you have to be accountable when you commit crimes, when you're mugging old people and doing stuff like that. No, you don't get a pass.
But Dr. Malvo, that somebody needs to frame that for her. But she also needs to, this woman who was put in prison by her because her daughter was sick and seemingly truant, at least on paper, but we knew that they knew that she was not. Explain those stories.
Did the
What?
woman contact the school, or did she
Yes,
just keep the
yes,
daughter out?
no. She had contacted the school. She had done. She had done.
Belated after the
She had,
child was out for a long
the
time.
thing is, when your child, and I don't have children, but if your child falls out and is sick, you are not thinking about making those phone calls. You're trying to save your child's life. And if you have and a school and the people in the school, if they are wise, they will ask, is everything okay? Because they already know the child is sick. There's a disconnect there. I mean, I'm just saying, I want the connection to be made, Dr. Malvo, because what we're making the case for her, but it's not landing, and that's the problem right now. And I want her to win. I'm just trying. I'm just telling you, as we're talking to people. That's why I have, a range of voices here today, from a range of places: Texas, Chicago, where the migrant crisis is huge in the Black community.
Yes,
Even while they brought nearly 40,000 Ukrainians here, and no one even talks about it. Not only were
absolutely.
they settled, they have been fast tracked for citizenship. They have been given housing. I mean, all the stuff that we say that we're giving to these brown people from Venezuela, whose country we have broken, we did that for the Ukrainians and more. No one even talks about it. And they need to have people out on the hustings framing that discussion to Black people, because they're talking about that in New York. They're talking about that in Chicago. They're talking about it in LA. I'm not making an argument for Trump. I'm making an argument for her. But I can't be ahead of her on it. Even, I mean, just if she would say something that would give Julian Malveaux and you, Daryl Jones, and you, Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds, the room. Because you're hearing out here discontent.
Yep.
And you're not going to hear it in Washington as much, because everybody's connected to somebody in Washington and in the DMV. But when you get out here to Chicago and Texas and Detroit, where I was yesterday, and in the South, you hear something. You hear other things. There's a reason that Trump is still so strong. I mean, it doesn't defy imagination. He is also a master marketer. Everybody, let's not sleep on him and his skills.
Mm-hmm.
He knows just what to say and whom he needs to say it to. And that is what he's been doing. And if you don't know how to read the room, like President Obama didn't read the room, you make a bigger, what did you say? Why'd you say that, Dr. Latrice?
Because I said that.
Okay, why'd you say that, Dr. Malveaux?
Because you're right. I mean, I think that former President Obama is often tone deaf when he talks to Black people. I mean, he went to Morehouse and told the brothers to pull the pants up. I mean,
no, and be responsible fathers. Like,
and these are, young men at our most elite school.
They're the talented 10th. They're people whose grandparents and great
there were a few of them were
grandparents.
sagging, but I remember speaking at Morehouse and being totally impressed by how professional the young brothers look with their blazers. I didn't see a sagging pant. Now there might have been one, and they did have a little issue with some of our gay brothers who insisted on carrying purses and wearing pumps. That was an issue. But I didn't see that. I mean, that was a wrong crowd. So he has a habit of being tone deaf with Black people. And I'm not sure what that's about, but it's part of who he is. He's constantly talks down to Black people. I was at the Congressional Black Caucus where the man told us to stop whining and put on our marching shoes.
No, take off your bedroom slippers.
Yeah, and put on your marching shoes. And I'm sitting there saying he is talking to people.
That was very Boys in the Hood. That was very Boys in the Hood. That was very Compton. And I ain't hating on Compton. I'm just saying, when he did that, everybody went.
Does he know who he's talking to? Does he know who he's talking to? You're talking to a group of political activists who paid at least $500 a seat to sit there, not to be lectured. So he just has a bad habit of that. I think, again, you talk about we're all the product of what we've been through. He wasn't raised by Black people. He was raised by white people. And he's talked about it. He talked about how, his grandma is scared when a Black person is behind him. Some of that needs to be kept to himself.
No, I think, and to her credit, she brought her grandbaby in, and she did the best that she could. I mean, because you got some grandparents who, for their Black child's too dark. Come on now, we all are a little messed up here. But Chaparro said, "Oh, Chaparro, here you go. I'm scared." And Daniel Perez says there are more than two choices. You're right, and I want you to vote. But that having been said, for some people, when they are dealing with realpolitik, they say that the choices are binary. But you know what, Daniel? There are going to be many people on the ballot, and I affirm and support your right to vote how you choose. I want you to be able to vote. That's my first concern because our access to the ballot is being curtailed. Indeed, Chaparral says that the blitz she's doing is resonating, but she needs to hit the Palestinian circuit. I was in Michigan yesterday. Yes, she does. Michael Moore dropped an op-ed this morning pleading for her to address Gaza, which is what you were saying, State Representative Ron Reynolds, because that's resonating with a lot of people. You know what? I literally have inside of a minute. We got Ariel Gold here, and she just got here so late, but we're about to go, Ariel. And we're going to go into the next hour to talk about our voting rights. And you have been on tour, Daryl Jones, with that. And I hope you'll get over there with me for just a few minutes to talk about that, because I just don't want you to get to the polls and get surprised and not know what to do, everybody. And that's happening to people. I've got about, Dr. Malvo, I've got about a minute for you, and really inside of a minute. Your thoughts?
Let me say, first of all, I agree with you. Kamala's message has not landed, but there is a message. She just released a lengthy, I think it's 80 plus page economic plan that resonates well. It deals with some of these issues that we're talking about. But as you say, everybody's not going to read an 80 some page economic plan. She's been out there. She's been hitting untraditional circuits and Charlemagne the God, some others. So she's doing a good job. We have to help her. Our bet, if we want her to win, we have to help her.
And we can't wait for her to tell us to help her. We just have to do it. And that's just how it goes.
Exactly. That's what Michelle said.
Doctor, well, she needs to be out there speaking of that. She's the most powerful voice in the party. And she's one of the most powerful Black women in the world. It would mean everything to see them on stage together.
Oh, yes.
It would mean everything. And I say that as someone who knows, and I've known Kamala Harris for more than 40 years, and I have loved Michelle LaVaughn Robinson Obama for years. She used to make me sing to her on her birthday every year because she was always trying to encourage me. She's that kind of friend. So, but we need to see her out there. She needs to be out there. She does.
Would make a difference. That would make a difference.
It would mean everything. It would mean everything. Texas State Representative Ron Reynolds.
Yeah, I know time is short. I agree. We're going to have to be the trusted messengers to help solidify her appeal. She has a lot of great ideas, and to me, the choice is clear between the two. I know there are other third parties, and I'm not discounting them, but this is a two-person race that is extremely tight, and I can't afford for people to get this one wrong. That's why we got to do everything we can to get Kamala Harris over the hump. If anyone can't pronounce her name, then they probably aren't supporting her anyway.
But many Black people know Kamala's because that.
No. I'm saying that facetiously because Trump keeps, I think, intentionally saying her name wrong. I was being facetious a little bit. Yeah, a little tongue in cheek.
Yeah, I'm looking at him and I'm like, okay, next.
Yeah.
What? That's just how I feel. Like, what? Okay. What else? Next. Dr. LaShawn Latrice, I got to get you a tight inside these.
Yeah. Just want to say that I understand that Kamala was doing her job, but she needs to come out and speak about what job she was doing so that she could calm the people down about what they think she did wrong and how that's being circulated. And I also think people need to be careful as trusted messengers to be careful to carry the right message, because if you're already a person that's not trusted and you're carrying her message, it's not going to go across very well with the people who are questioning who she is.
Ariel Gold, you got here just in the nick of time. Thank you, Bonnie Raitt. I've got a minute for you. Close us out, my dear sister.
Yeah, we need, we want to do this. We want to campaign for her, and we need some more of her help, right? We need her to throw us more of a bone, and especially on Gaza. I got to say, I am worried about Michigan. And now we have the Biden administration saying that if Israel doesn't let more humanitarian aid in, that will embargo weapons in 30 days. Well, first of all, we've heard about Biden's red lines before. We have heard that, but Kamala could do something here. She could say, I mean it. I don't know. We need her. We need her help so we can help her.
I'm with you. That needs to happen, everybody. So, we will see. AM 950 radio. Let's talk about the vote. And for those of you who got there just a little late, Ariel, I'm sending you a link so you can come over and we can continue this conversation and kind of move over into the vote, Daryl Jones, because this is a very real issue. October 21st on Monday. We will be at Rainbow Push at 930 East 50th Street at 6 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Looking at the movie Vigilantes Inc. Vigilantes Inc. You need to be there. And because you need to, when you see these people who feel they have the right to take your vote from you, I think it's going to do something to you and for you. I really do. I really, really do. Because these are folks who are pushing the cart next to you in the grocery store. And then they go home and they snatch you off the voter rolls. They don't even know who you are, but they know what you look like. How about that? Think about it, everybody. Second hour of the Santita Jackson Show, sending all my love to this wonderful panel. See you in a few more minutes. It's just so much going on, but that's not a sigh of weariness. It's a sigh of, you know what? I got to get up out of this chair and I got to do some more work. How about that? Back with more of the Santita Jackson Show on AM 950 Radio, the voice of progressive Minnesota. Back in a minute.